And are you refreshed?
Yes.
Good. Now what?
Thank you. I can't believe I'm sitting here. I've been listening to you for years. Like the last person who was up here, I kind of came into this world knowing from like a little person that I was different, and I connected to teaching such as yours. And I discovered the Seth tapes when I was 16 and 17, and I'm 60 right now. So it's been a journey of just following along in this. And you know, I have 1,000 questions, and I can usually answer all of those. But there's one thing that happened in my past, but it was really beautiful, and I would like some clarity from your perspective, if you can help me understand it.
Before you go further, we just want to say that difference that you're defining is just a stubbornness, because you are all born knowing your uniqueness. But sometimes you are easily swayed by those around you who sort of want to make you part of the soup, when it is your natural inclination to be the unique, seeing things from your perspective being that you are.
Yes.
So we just want to emphasize that.
Thank you. Yes. It's taken a lifetime to learn that and trust that, but yes. What I'm going to share is...
We want to say something else. We are going to let you talk.
It doesn't really matter.
But when you say, it's taking me a lifetime to get here, no, it didn't. Because you were there and there and there and there and there and there, but always where you are now is the clearest place. And so when you say, it's taken me a lifetime to be here, say that with the relish of the deliciousness of the lifetime that you've been able to devour this in, not in a shortage consciousness like, it shouldn't have taken me so long.
True.
Of course, it's taken you as long as it's taken you to be here, because here you are. And what you know now feels important, and it is. But you knew stuff before now, and you've been in the receiving mode, all of you, many times more than just only now. And the less you say that, the more you free up beliefs that are hindering you, and the more you allow your now to be the receptacle of so much that you deserve. Yeah.
Many years ago, 25 approximately, I had a fight with my then boyfriend, now husband. It was January, it was
Irrelevant.
New Year's Eve. Anyway, you know, I went to bed angry. I got up the next morning, I got in my car, and I drove to one of my favorite little towns. I parked in a parking lot. It was a Sunday morning, and I was facing the woods, and it was east orientation because the sun was pouring through the glass in my car. So I put my head back, and I just closed my eyes and sort of thinking about the events of the night before. Next thing I know, I was sort of in a meditative state, and then I went, and this has never happened before, and I meditate and all that, but I kind of went into this out-of-body experience where my body, I was above my body, looking down at me, looking at myself in the car, going, oh, poor thing. You know, that's such a bad thing that happened, and here she is. She's just trying to figure this out. In the meantime, I was up here in this white light. I felt glorious. I felt glorious, and I felt this pull. And I know this sounds like a near-death thing, but that's not what was happening. But it sounds like what other people have said, that, you know, so it's a white light. It's pulling me towards it. And I'm sitting here in this white light going, but that's me, and this is me, and which one is it? And this one feels so much better, but that's my life down there. I need to go back to my life. And I went back and woke up, and then this is that I don't understand. For 3 solid days, it was nothing but pure positive energy. It was source, it was like God, I don't know, but I walked around in this bubble of perfection. I came home, the fight that existed with my husband, what fight? It had no relevance. I went to work in the corporate world. Everything was perfect. It flowed beautifully. It is the vortex on steroids. And I go in and out of the vortex all the time, but I don't understand why that happened then, why I can't find it again.
Well, you'll need to have one of those experiences.
Yes, I'm honored. I'm touched. I just don't understand.
But let's talk about it, because your wonderful description of your two perspectives is really what we talk about all the time, isn't it? When we talk about receiving mode or receiving mode, when we talk about seeing through the eyes of source, when we talk about getting tapped in, tuned in, turned on, when we talk about alignment. So that's what you experience. But let's talk about why. Let's talk about why it is so important, and why it's important for those who maybe haven't had that experience to hear about your experience, because it is such a perfect depiction of what we've been talking about all day here today already. So you're responding to life as most are, just reacting. So you were having that experience with your then boyfriend, having your perspective at odds with his perspective, and on an important enough topic that you threw a lot into your vortex in the process of that. In other words, strong desire was flowing from you, but you were in a place of absolutely rejecting and disallowing the desire that was flowing. Lots of momentum. This was not a new topic. This was not a new experience. This is something that had gathered a lot of momentum. So you were, you might say, way past the rumble strips and way out into the grass. In other words, the desire was really, really strong, but you were not in the place of receiving. But the desire was so strong that you were inspired to go, to get away from whatever was going on, to sort of diffuse the power of the resistance. You see, everything's always this balance of desire and belief, this balance of desire and allowing. And we've been saying for quite a long time that when you have a really, really, really powerful desire, the desire overcomes any resistance. Our friend had a powerful desire to be in conversation with us. And even though he was lamenting the fact that he'd not been called on yet, his desire was so strong in relationship to the small resistance that he was holding that the manifestation he was seeking happened. And it's the same sort of thing. Your desire was so strong. Now, there are two important things that we want to point out to you. You already said them, but we want to emphasize them. You were feeling like such a victim, like poor me, poor me, poor me, which is not who you are in any way, shape, or form. It's not who you are in the receiving mode. It is such a departure from who you are. So you actually were able to affect an experience where you were not only able to see through the eyes of source, you were able to see yourself through the eyes of source. Now, we talk a lot, as you all have been gathering, and we've been talking about how you create your own reality. We've been explaining to you that you are more than you see here in this physical body, but almost no one really understands that. You have this general sense that there was something before this, and you hope there would be something after this, but you don't really have this profound sense of who you really are, that source energy, that this larger part of you is looking with you in this moment. Esther, in all of these years that she's been receiving us, had an idea of Abraham. In other words, she can feel us. She knows the power of us. She knows that there's clarity within her when she's allowing Abraham to pour through her, unlike anything that she experiences on a day-to-day basis otherwise. So she gets this. But it wasn't until Jerry made his transition to non-physical and her powerful desire to reunite with him and to stay connected with him that she really understood the ability of those beloveds who are non-physical to be aware of you here and now. The presence, the existence, the presence, and the awareness of this non-physical energy is so powerful and so profound, and that's what you experienced. So much so that for a moment your consciousness joined that, enough that that is dominantly who you were, so that you could take a look also at who you are. And as you said, for about 3 days there was a blending of who you are and who you are. It's what we are wanting you to accomplish in all of the different things that we suggest that you might do. We want you to raise your vibration to the frequency of who you are, so that whole of you is having these conversations, is walking through life, who is moving through the airport, is having experiences, who is enjoying your food and your language and your interaction with others. That's what you intended. You intended to come and be in this body, but to have the whole of you in this body. Jerry wanted to put on the spine of all the books, self-help from your total self. Self-help from your total self, because there is not one of you who does not have this aspect of you, but because of the fights that you have and the vulnerability that you feel and the victimhood that you're willing to accept irrationally for yourselves. You pinch yourself off from that broader point of view, and you don't need to. So you had that experience that you will never forget, that you have described with such perfection that no one here will ever forget it either. Because every one of you who has that inner being who is looking with you in this moment, not just about you generally, and not just about where you've been or who you will be once you croak and reemerge into non-physical. We try to be as disrespectful about death as we can be, since there isn't any death. So that you understand that in the here and now, you have that access to that knowing, to that feeling of who you are, to that feeling that all is well, to that feeling of your goodness and your worthiness and your wholeness, so that you could feel who you really are as you were examining who you always had thought you were. A sort of in this now colliding. We called it earlier a junction or a juncture, but it's a colliding of who you really are with who you think you are, that you have the potential of experiencing in every moment, you see. Your wisdom is so deep, but you pinch it off. Your love is so profound and so deep, but you pinch it off for irrational reasons as you are comparing yourselves to others who are in this receiving mode instead of in this receiving mode.
Why is it so difficult for us to get it?
Because you practice otherwise so much. That's why. Right there. That's why. Why don't I get it? That's why. What? That's why. I don't know what you're saying.
I mean, I do.
Why isn't it working for me? That's why. I don't get what you're saying. That's why. That thing you're doing right now, that thing you're doing right now, that noticing that it's difficult is why it's difficult. Thank you. Yeah. But your desire was strong, and it triumphed, and it gave you another point of view. And you knew it wasn't a dream. You knew it was real. You knew it was big. You knew it was real. You knew it was real. And you knew what was the realest part of it, too, didn't you? You knew. But in those 3 days, that's why Jesus said, go forth and tell no one. Because you talk yourself right back into your vulnerability, into your victimhood. But you don't need to. Not ever again. Enough?
Thank you. Oh, I could go on, but I'll let somebody else.
Really good. Really good.